Let us pray. And now may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord our God, our wisdom, our salvation. Amen. Well, if there's one thing that we've discovered in life is that there's more than one way of doing something. We say the adage is there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't know where that adage come from, and the one thing about experience is that if we do the same thing over and over and over again, over time, we learn that there are better ways to do something. Maybe there was a way that worked, but boy, if I do this or I tweak that, it'll be better. I know that there are things that I've had to do over the years I've never done before, and I'll do it, and it doesn't turn out well. And you know, the one thing about failure, because sometimes we see failure as failure, but I think it's better to say, you know, failure isn't really failure, it's just learning not to do it that way again, right? But you know, when you do something over time, when you have experience, whether it's vocationally at your job or whether it's just a hobby or whatever it might be, you learn over time there are better ways to do things. There might be more than one way to do something, but that doesn't mean all the ways to do something are equal. So we learn at time to do things better. That's the old master-apprentice model, right? The apprentice attaches himself to the master to learn the vocation, and the master, if he's a good master, a good craftsman, teaches the apprentice over his time, not only by instructing him, but showing him how to do things and actually watching him do it. So that over time, one day, this apprentice becomes the master. I think that image is helpful for thinking about Paul in 1 Corinthians and what he is saying in our scripture for today, a very familiar scripture, 1 Corinthians 13. We've been spending, this is the third week I think we've spent in Paul, and we've seen that Paul is addressing a very divided congregation. A congregation that is fighting, a congregation in competition over everything. A congregation in which their diversity is not what Paul says should happen, contribute to their unity, but rather it's just making things even worse. And as we have seen, it's true with their understanding of the spiritual gifts. They've used the diversity of their spiritual gifts as a competition. Well, my gifts are better than yours. I mean, I'm glad we got your gifts, but you know, those really aren't at the top. And Paul writes to say, no, that is not the way this works. All the spiritual gifts matter, just like all the parts of the body matter. And God, the Spirit of God, has given to each and every person the gifts the Spirit wants to give. It's not our job to decide what gifts we want to have. The Spirit gives us those gifts. Now, so therefore, it's a little strange at the end of chapter 12, and that's not our lectionary reading doesn't include that for today. But I think it's important to understand 1 Corinthians 13, because Paul says, first, strive for the greater gifts. Well, he's just told us the Spirit gives what the Spirit's going to give. What are we striving for? And then he says, let me show you a better way. Instead of all this competition and fighting and disunity, let me show you a more excellent way. Let me show you a better way. And then Paul launches into chapter 13 with love. Paul will say at the end of 13, I want to do that first and then go back. At the end of 13, he'll say, and now all the things abide, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest is love. And so when Paul tells the Corinthians to strive for the greater gifts, he's not talking about those spiritual gifts back there that the Spirit gives as the Spirit chooses. He's talking about the gifts of faith, hope, and love. which are gifts all of us should have as believers. The gift of faith, the gift of hope, and the gift of love. And Paul wants us to strive to deepen those. Yes, love's the most important one. Love is central, but faith and hope matter too. Strive for those gifts. Because see, if we can strive for those gifts and deepen those gifts in our lives and begin to put them into practice, now you've got a diverse body of the church that is a unity. Because it's all about love, it's all about our faith, and it's all about the hope we have in Jesus Christ. And then all of our other diversity fits into that. And you know, we human beings, we naturally seem to, let's say it this way, we love love. Maybe we should say we're in love with love. It's one of the things we talk about the most probably. I'm sure that that's the one topic that most songs have been written on is love. And it seems like even from birth, even from being very young, children gravitate toward interaction and human touch. We need love. We've got all kinds of ways in our technological culture to find love. That is, if we're looking for someone to spend our lives with, we've got apps and we've got all kinds of different other things that people can get on to hopefully see they can find somebody that they can love and can love them for the rest of their lives. But that's not just the only kind of love, right? Love of other family members and friends. And that love really comes innately from God. Because of our belief in the doctrine of the Trinity, that God is triune. As St. Augustine says, in the triune God is an intermutual sharing of love between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so we desire love because God is inherently love. You know, it's very interesting that the Bible says God is love. It doesn't just say God is loving. It does say that, but God is love. God is love. Nowhere does the Bible say. The Bible tells us at times God gets angry at us because when we don't do the right things, but the Bible never says God is angry. In other words, God is anger. The Bible never says God is faith, although faith is good. In other words, you don't get that noun. God is, you don't get any of that except with God is love. And we believe that God created in love, and that God sustains us in love, and that love matters. And in fact, for God, God's love for us is so deep, so profound, that God was willing to do whatever was necessary to save us. And so that's what happens in Jesus Christ. We sing that song at Christmas. Love came down at Christmas. The problem is that we human beings can trivialize love. I mean, part of the problem is we've got one word to cover all of these affections that we talk about. We just have one word, love. So we can say, I love you in one breath, and I love pizza in the other. And depending on who it is we love, we're not sure which one comes in first sometimes, maybe. So it's hard because we've just got this one word. And we can sort of trivialize and sentimentalize love. But when you read the Bible, love is anything but trivial. Love is anything but sentimental. In fact, God loves the world so much that kind of love that God demonstrated in Jesus Christ put Jesus on the cross. And we say, why would anyone crucify someone running around saying, hey, you know what, I got this real radical idea, let's love one another. Oh, we can't have that. But it's because of the kind of love embodied in Jesus that can make us so uncomfortable. The love of the love that leads us to suffer, that leads us to sacrifice. Now, we all know this to some extent, right? Parents sacrifice things because of the love of their children. Friends can sacrifice for the love of, say, a close friend or a neighbor. So we get that. We get that. But what the kind of love the New Testament calls us to can be even more disarming. I mean, when Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount to love our enemies, I'm glad to love the neighbor next door who sometimes irritates me a little bit, but still is a pretty good guy. But boy, loving those who don't seek my good? Okay, Jesus, you taking this a little far? But that's what it says. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. And by the way, it is very interesting. And if we've been in church for any length of time, we know this. The word the Bible uses for love in the Greek New Testament is agape. It's Christian love. What's real interesting about this word, agape, is if you look back, because the Greeks, unlike us, had more than one word for love. If you look back in its usage way back before Jesus, back there, Plato and Socrates and all of that, the word agape really often just meant like respect. It didn't really mean love in the way we think about it. It meant respect. And so why did the Christians pick up this word and use it for the word for Christian love? I think it's because you can't command people to love other people. If you're thinking about love as a feeling, as love as sentimental, when Jesus says love your enemy, he is not saying have feelings for them. You need to develop feelings of affection for them. No, it's not what he's saying. When he says love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, what he's saying is, if you're going to follow me, you need to seek even the welfare of your opponent, even if you don't want to. That's what you need to do. This is not a love that necessarily has any kind of affection or sentiment to it. It's a love of action. It's a verb in a sense. And so because of that, Jesus can say, in keeping with his Jewish context and history, the greatest commandment is to love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, by the way, who is my neighbor? Someone asked Jesus that one time in Luke, and then Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the Samaritan is your neighbor, which I'm sure when the young man asked Jesus who my neighbor is, he was sorry he asked after he got the parable. And so this is a love. Let me read just briefly. Paul starts out 1 Corinthians and he says, look, even if we do things that we praise people for, right? If I have prophetic powers, if I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, boy, I wish I did. But if I don't have, and if I have faith so that I can remove mountains, but do not have love, I'm nothing. If I give away all of my possessions, if I am acclaimed by people to be so generous, but I don't have love, I gain nothing. And then he starts to define. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious. Love is not boastful or arrogant. It's not rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable nor resentful. And it does not rejoice in wrongdoing. And that's just not wrongdoing in general. It doesn't rejoice when the enemy is caught doing something they shouldn't and we go, yes. But it rejoices in the truth. It bears all things. It believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And by the way, Paul says, regardless of with the spiritual gifts and everything else we place so much importance on, the one thing we can say for sure is love will never end. And why is that? Because we serve an eternal God who loves us eternally. And so we as the church, as the followers of Jesus, we love love, but we don't just love it for its own sake. What Paul is doing, when Paul is giving this list, who can you think of, right? Who embodies this? Jesus. Jesus embodies all of this. Jesus sought out the good of others, even the good of his enemies who actually put him on the cross, because he died for them too. He didn't say, okay, I'm going to die for you, you, and you, and you, but you weren't nice to me. I'm convinced that the pursuit of this kind of love, the love that Jesus embodies, that we should embody in our lives, I am convinced it's a lifetime endeavor. Because it isn't, I'll speak for myself, it isn't always easy. It isn't always easy, but it's there. And so as we move forward with our lives and into eventually eternity, if there is one thing we can count on in a world that's always changing, always changing, change, if there's somebody, I don't remember who said it, somebody said if there's one constant in life, it's change, right? In a world that is always changing, there is one thing we can always count on, one thing that will never fail us, and that is the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord. And then, God says to each and every one of us, that love I'm talking about, that love I have for you, go and love others. Do unto others as I have done to you. Let us pray. Gracious God, there is just no way we can fathom the depth of your love for us. We can seek to understand it as best as possible, but ultimately it is hard to comprehend the love you have for us that is just continues to be steady and deep, even in the midst of knowing that we can disappoint you, that we can do those things that you certainly have told us not to do. Forgive us for when we fall short of this excellent way of love. But thank you for your Holy Spirit, who makes it possible for us to nurture that love within us, that we may love one another and others, as you have so loved the world. In Jesus' name.